What's going on, fight fans? It's your host Sebastian, and welcome back to the Boxing Tip. Now, as you guys know, the boxing news is a little slow. Well, at least for me it is. Not too much stuff I'm seeing out there that I feel is really worth making a video on, but as a boxing fan, I felt like it was only right for me to kind of give you guys my input on this particular situation and why I personally feel like it's a fucking joke. Alright, now go to pretty much any major YouTube channel, any major boxing YouTube channel, aside from a few out there, and their channels are flooded with this shit. Like, they're actually provoking this, or they're advertising for this, and it makes me feel like, do you guys make your channels for, it makes me question the real reasons why they have boxing channels, or maybe they're just, they're reporters and they, whatever seems juicy, they just put out there. So I guess I can't blame them for doing what they do, but at the same time, I feel like it gives people, at least who are new to boxing, the wrong idea. And I don't see how you can justify this particular matchup really making sense, because like I said, I think it's a joke. Other than the money this fight would make, I could see that, but that really just benefits both guys. It doesn't really benefit anybody in the boxing community. It doesn't really benefit anybody in the MMA community. Now, I have a lot of respect for mixed martial arts. It's a very versatile sport, and it's a very brutal sport and a very dangerous sport. Boxing is as well, but obviously that mixed martial artists have a lot more weapons at their disposal, a lot more body parts they can use, and a lot more tactics they can use to hurt their opponent. So I do feel like it is the more dangerous sport in a sense, in terms of the beatings that you take in the process. Not exactly sure if you compared the deaths of boxers to the deaths of mixed martial artists and who has more, but nevertheless, in my view, I see it as being a more dangerous sport. Being that you can knee, you can elbow, it's not just left to your knuckles doing the damage. You have many weapons at your disposal. So, not to mention grappling and, submission tactics, that could potentially break a limb, or, completely injure a fighter permanently, if it's that bad, if they don't tap out quick enough or something, they could potentially be putting themselves at a serious risk. But not too much about this. So I respect mixed martial arts. I'm not like a diehard mixed martial artist fans or a hardcore fan. I would be what would be considered a casual fan to mixed martial arts. I do catch some fights sometimes, and I enjoy watching it. It's just not really, it doesn't conflict with my love for boxing or anything, but it's just not really something that I've gained a serious interest in. I did used to help MMA fighters with boxing, and help them train with their boxing, and learn a little bit of some boxing skill, to prep, get them prepared for little matchups that they got or whatever. So I've helped out some mixed martial artists before, with their striking. So, and obviously it's a lot different than boxing, so I had to kind of do my research and kind of see how the MMA striking differs from boxing. And obviously the fight between two mixed martial artists doesn't necessarily mean that they're always going to be on their feet. So I had to, compensate for certain things like that, things to kind of look out for. So I had to do a little bit of learning of my own. But nevertheless, I've never been a hardcore mixed martial artist, but I do respect the sport. It's like I said, it's a very dangerous sport, as well as boxing, and requires a lot of knowledge, a lot of skill, a lot of thinking, and a lot of stamina. Jesus Christ. If you guys have ever done any grappling or any wrestling of some sort, you know that shit tires you out really bad. Trying to work against somebody else's weight, you know what I'm saying? Trying to maneuver body limbs when they're, it's just it's a very tiresome sport. So I do have a lot of respect for the mixed martial artists out there. And obviously I'm a, diehard boxing fan, so I respect the sport of boxing a lot. And you've seen crossovers in the past, like I think James Toney made a jump to MMA at the end of, like after he retired from boxing. Maybe he felt like he can become something significant somewhere else. That didn't work out for him. Ricardo Mayorga, I think he even made a jump to MMA. I think he got beat up pretty badly in one of his fights. So it's not a sport that meshes too well, even though mixed martial arts does incorporate boxing, in their variety of, it incorporates boxing, in what they do other than boxing, like Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu, I'm sure even like like Taekwondo. I know some fighters who were students of Taekwondo martial art, and that's just to name a few. Judo, you name it. But and they do incorporate, boxing, dirty boxing, kickboxing. So it meshes well on the MMA side. It doesn't mesh well for a boxer to go to MMA, being that they had to deal with so much more adversity than they do in a boxing ring, with getting taken down or getting grappled and kneed to the face and shit like that, especially when they've spent their entire careers solely boxing. But what really just, and I'm gonna just kind of, and that's just enough about the MMA portion of what I'm talking about, just to kind of establish to you guys that yes, I do respect mixed martial arts, in the UFC and Bellator and all the different platforms of mixed martial arts. But I don't like the fact that, I guess like I said, it makes sense, but Floyd Mayweather has been a significant character of boxing, or a significant person in boxing, for a while, and he's accomplished some pretty good things. Like I tell usually when I bring up Floyd Mayweather, I'm not so much a fan of his career choices. I am more of a fan of what he does inside of the ring. He does box very well, but you take a guy from the UFC or from mixed martial arts and then throw him in a boxing ring. In his professional boxing debut against, I guess what many people would say one of the best fighters of our generation, and expect this to be somehow entertaining. I think the more entertaining part about it is the names. The names are the most entertaining part about this. I actually have no interest in seeing Conor McGregor in a boxing ring trying to take on Floyd Mayweather. I have no interest in it. It's not competitive. If Conor McGregor, say 3 years ago, started boxing professionally and does what other boxers do, they climb their way through the ranks and they earn, title shots, and they earn their big money fights. Some get a little bit fast tracked, others don't, but nevertheless, they've accomplished things before their professional boxing career to kind of put them in those type of positions to be fast tracked, to get to the mainstream spotlight of boxing. Well, Conor McGregor hasn't ever had a professional boxing match, as far as I know. If this fight for some reason gets made, that would be his debut. And if Floyd gets the win, technically he breaks the record that he's been trying to break. I think it's the Marciano record, 50-0, retired, or something like that. I know it's a record that has to do with 50-0. I think as of right now, he's tied with the record. So, but he wins that fight, in a fight that he would be heavily favored in, gets a record, makes all this tremendous amount of money, and retires. If you're going to step back into the ring, wouldn't it make a little more sense to actually give one of these younger guys at welterweight a chance to maybe get their shine on? You know what I'm saying? Like Keith Thurman, Keith Thurman, I like Keith Thurman. I'm a big fan of him. I think that'd be a good fight for Floyd. A young, tough, very competitive fighter like Sean Porter even. You know what I'm saying? Danny Garcia, I guess I could see that, but stylistically, it doesn't seem like it would make for a very good fight. I think Floyd's just too. He's more fluid. He's too fluid for Danny Garcia, in my opinion. But like a Sean Porter, a Keith Thurman, if Errol Spence wasn't like his protege, I guess you could say, I would say Errol Spence Jr. After he's done more. But I feel like this is sort of one of those things where if you take this seriously as something that's significant in boxing, then in a way I feel it's a little disrespectful to the sport as a whole. You know what I mean? You have one of the supposed best of our generation fighters, or I would just go ahead and say one of the best of our generation of fighters. At least my generation. I'm a little bit on the younger side, but I think my first fight I've ever watched was Tyson Holyfield. So I've been around for. I've been watching boxing for a while, and that was when I was like 4 years old. So I've been watching boxing for a while and been paying attention to it. My dad's a huge boxing fan as well, so I've always paid attention to the sport. But I feel like it kind of, in a way, it's a little not disrespectful, I guess you could say. I would say, yeah, it's a little disrespectful to some boxing fans, who have been around for a while, or even newer boxing fans, to give them the illusion like this type of thing is okay and then call it a significant event in boxing. Like, to me, that's how I feel where it's a joke. That's where I feel like it's a joke. For it to even being considered a significant event in boxing is a joke to me, because it's not. A guy who would be making his whatever he's done in the UFC, once he steps inside the boxing ring for his first time or for his first professional fight, it means nothing. You know what I mean? I know he's a very, in the UFC or in mixed martial arts, he's a very good striker. He's a good striker. He's a good fighter. But it's a whole nother world when you make the crossover. But if this fight for some reason happens, I guess what would make me somewhat okay with it is, first off, don't consider this a major significant event in boxing, because it's really not. This is just for entertainment purposes. Call it an exhibition or whatever you want to call it. It's really not a significant event in boxing at all. But what would make me somewhat feel alright about this is if, for one, I wouldn't consider it a significant event in boxing. For two, if Conor McGregor, and I know he has his license already, or that's what I heard, at least in the state of California he has his license. If he fights Floyd Mayweather in a boxing ring, I feel like it would only be fair if Floyd stepped into the octagon with Conor McGregor, But then again, I wouldn't want the UFC to feel like they're being, like, there's a mockery happening. Oh, a boxer's going to come and fight the best, who's considered one of the best fighters in mixed martial arts today. You know what I mean? And then we're going to call that a significant event. If I were a mixed martial artist fan, I wouldn't really appreciate that either. Same with Conor McGregor coming over here and fighting. But I don't like how advertised this fight is being. Like, okay, I get it. It's interesting. At the least, it's interesting to see, two of the biggest figures in each sport, decide to meet up in the ring, in a boxing ring, not the octagon, but in a boxing ring. But on the flip side, I don't like the idea of it at all, really. It makes absolutely no sense other than money. If anybody can come up with another reason besides money why this fight would make sense, then please do so. But if they're not going to make it, stop talking about it. You know what I mean? I'm only making this video to just put my input on it, but I'm not talking about the fight so I can hype it up or even make it. Obviously, I unintentionally sort of advertised the idea of this fight, and I understand that. But I'm going to make it very clear that I don't approve of this fight happening. And I don't like the fact that some major boxing channels are humoring this fight. You know what I'm saying? Or like acknowledging that this is a possible thing to go down in. And then now we got to, like, out the woodwork, all different types of boxers are now talking about Conor McGregor. Like, I think Amir Khan, I would have fucked Conor McGregor up. And I think, like, Brandon Rios might have said something. I think a few other fighters might have said something. But these reporters are going around asking these questions. Like, Conor McGregor has yet to even step in a professional boxing match. And we're already talking to some of the biggest names in boxing on whether or not they would fight him. Like, to me, that's just kind of fucked up, man. Like, that's like poison to the sport in a way, man. If it's come to this, where they're trying to make some major crossover between mixed martial arts and boxing, I just don't see how that's a good thing. You know what I'm saying? They're two completely different disciplines. Two completely different. One incorporates the other, but it's different. It is different when you're fighting. It's different when you're a boxer fighting a boxer compared to trying to box an MMA or a mixed martial artist, you know, or two mixed martial artists trying to box. It's a whole different story because, like I said, they have more tools to utilize. They have more weapons available to them. So the strategicness of boxing doesn't really apply so much in mixed martial arts. Same with the mixed martial arts style of striking doesn't really apply so much in a professional boxing match. You know what I mean? Of course, it's unfair for a guy who's spent his entire career in mixed martial arts to come over to boxing to fight a guy who's been boxing since he was an infant. You know what I'm saying? Since he was a child. How is that even remotely fair? And then try to push it off like this might be competitive? Like, get the fuck out of here. It might make sense, but the only people it really benefits is the two guys, Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather. It doesn't really benefit the sport of boxing because once that fight's done, Floyd's probably out of there. He's retired. And Conor McGregor will go back to the UFC, and you know, he'll keep doing his thing there. But what's left for both sports? Nothing really. Just a big ass, probably just a huge payday for both guys, and whatever network it decides to get aired on. But money is king, so I guess that's more than enough reason to justify this fight happening, I guess. But it doesn't really do anything for the boxing, the hardcore boxing fans, the boxing only fans. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't really do much for us, because if we're gonna see Floyd get back in the ring, I would like to see him fight someone who's been boxing for a while now, and has done everything to be at the top of his division, to go up and, you know, and then now get some additional exposure fighting Floyd Mayweather, whether he wins or not. Fighting Floyd Mayweather gives you exposure whether you win or not. It makes you that much more of a draw, or at least it puts your name out there so people know who you are. Obviously, they'd be buying the fight because it's a Floyd Mayweather fight, but at least now they know your name for sure. So, I guess I'd rather see that. I'd rather see it benefit another boxer than two guys who are the biggest money fighters of MMA and boxing go up against each other, because that's all it really is just a money fight. It has no significance for either discipline. You know what I'm saying? That's why I just kind of feel like this is a joke, and the fact that other channels are even entertaining this idea is just, to me, it's a little fucked up. And I would prefer if the YouTube boxing community isn't flooded with these type of, you know what I'm saying, these fucking videos. You know what I mean? Like, there's so much more significant shit that's happening in boxing than a retired guy and a guy who is fighting in a completely different fucking sport. A matchup between them. That's the biggest news in boxing. And that's fucking sad. But that's all I got for this video, guys. Comment your thoughts. Let me know. Actually, don't even comment. I wouldn't want to... You know what? Comment anyway, I guess. It doesn't really... Comment if you want, but I suggest you don't. Because I'm sure I know what a lot of you guys would say, and I'm sure on the flip side, I know what a lot of guys on the opposite end would say as well. So... comment if you want to. Share the video. Actually, don't share the video, because I don't really want this to be entertained as like I'm okay with this happening. That's why my title is gonna definitely say something bad about this. Just a heads up. Or no, you guys already see it, so I can't really get you a heads up. But at least now you guys know why. And then introduce somebody to boxing, man. But if I were you, don't entertain the idea of two sports doing some crossover mega match that isn't going to last but for the time it's going on. Once the fight's done, it's done and over with, and we'll hopefully never see anything like that happen again. So if you're going to introduce somebody to boxing, just keep them in boxing. Or if they're mixed martial artist fans, then at least show them that. Make sure you make the distinguishment between the two, that they probably shouldn't cross over, because it's not really fair to either guy, to either person, unless, you know, they've had to go through the system like everyone else has. But whatever. Also subscribe to the channel. I'll talk to you guys on the next one. Peace.